very heavy. It is a combat knife. It's been used by our troops since World War II, famously by the United States Marine Corps.
So how did police know exactly what they were looking for? In late 2022, that wasn't clear. But what you could easily find out is that anyone could go online and buy a K-bar knife.
And that's very specific. Folks that didn't see it, there's the word, K-bar. It actually is what's referred to as a bastardization of the words kill a bear. And that's how far it goes back. And so the knife was considered to be that robust as a combat knife. You show up with a knife like this, you know, it kind of implies that you're showing up with, say, some level of homicidal intent.
But who says that anybody showed up with that? It could have easily been one of the victims that they were trying to use to defend themselves when the person came in and committed
It
the crime.
appeared police, even with the help of the FBI, had little, if anything, to go on.
Just what happens in the beginning of a case like that, you don't know what's what. You don't know where to go. So you're just trying to stay in the investigative mindset so that once you get that break, whatever that break is that you were alluding to, like what was that one thing, you want to be able to be in a position so when that one thing happens, you can...
That I mean that it was for protection is because the person that commits the crime is either going to leave the sheath out somewhere or it's going to be on a belt loop. The reason that I think that it was found next to the victims and it wasn't on a belt, the person that's going to commit the crime is not going to walk in and hold a sheath in one hand and a knife in the other because they need the other hand that's not holding the knife to hold the person.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Or to push them back or to make sure that they have some kind of defense. They're not going to have their hand tied up with a fucking sheath. So that's why I say the sheath to me seems like it could have been some kind of protection because to me, it's the only thing that makes sense why a sheath wouldn't be on a belt or in somebody's pocket or left in a vehicle or sitting somewhere, period.
Yeah, because, I mean, here's the thing. If you have the knife in a sheath and you're going to commit this crime, I mean, you're pulling it out, like you said, with one hand, and how are you going to leave it there? Because when you leave, you're going to put that knife, if that's where it came from, you're going to put it back in the sheath. You're going to automatically know that that sheath isn't there if it came out. You know, if it came off, unsnapped from the belt or whatever. That's what you do.
Yeah,
So,
that's what I'm saying.
How could
So
you
like,
miss it?
so if you're going to commit this crime, say you're going to commit this crime and say you don't have it on a belt loop. Okay. Say you're in your car or you're standing outside next to the bush. I don't give a shit where you're at. The thing that you're not worried about is putting the sheath over the knife while you're inside the property. You're
Right.
not. You're worried about putting it on when you go out of there.
Yes.
So to say that the person came in there and had the sheath in their hand and then the other hand, the knife,
Crazy.
no, it doesn't make sense. To say that they carried it in 2 feet into the, no, it doesn't make sense. The person's going to be walking in there with the sheath already off.
Mm-hmm.
And if it's going to be on a sheath, then I would imagine it would be on their belt loop. And if they're wearing a suit, then they would have left it in their fucking car. They would have left it outside. They're not bringing it into the crime scene.
Exactly.
Just as a general thing, because you don't want to have your one hand tied up. You need it. You're taking on 4 people. You don't even know if you're going to make it out of there before you get to the 4th person. You don't even know because anything can happen. So the last thing that you're going to do is have one of your hands tied up with something that isn't going to help you commit this crime. That's why I feel like the sheath was part of one of the roommates that had it up there for protection from a boyfriend or somebody. It was protection. It was not the person that committed the crime. It just, I don't know. It just doesn't make sense to me that somebody would walk in there to commit the crime and have one of their hands tied up with a sheath.
Labar believes the case is defendable.
But the evidence, when it's viewed individually, you can attack that evidence as a defense attorney. But if you take the DNA evidence that's recovered from the sheath, for instance, I believe that to potentially be touch DNA, transfer DNA, which would mean that it could remain on that sheath for an indefinite period of time if undisturbed.
Forensic death investigator Joseph Scott Morgan on the sheath.
It would be clicked over and over again to get access, and it's just kind of actuating the snap.
It's important to note the public doesn't know the source of the DNA on the snap of the sheath.
If it is touch DNA, which is generally associated with dead, sloughing skin cells, this is a perfect place to harvest it from, because it can actually be caught in this location and kind of protected in that area, because it's
Yes, protected in that area. Like they just said, it could be there for who knows how long.
Exactly.
It's in a protected area. That's why I keep saying, who says that, who says, what if it was a gift from BK? Who says BK didn't know that Kaylee was a sleuther? Or, knew she was a sleuther, wanted to do something nice. Hey, I got 4 of them. How about you have one to protect yourself in case, you're getting into some you're getting into some ugly shit. And no, don't carry a weapon around, or a gun or something. Here, have this knife, as protection, just as some kind of friendly gift. I mean, who knows? Who's to say that BK didn't go pawn the damn thing and one of their friends went and bought it at a pawn shop?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then there's no connection there at all. What if you went and sold it to a pawn shop?
Yeah, I'll be interested to see what his explanation is, because we don't know. But I mean, it makes sense to sleep. Like, there's a lot of times I sleep with a dagger.
I mean, he might not ever know. As far as he knows, maybe he just pawned the damn knife off because he had 4 of them. Maybe he just pawned it off because he didn't need it. He needed a couple extra bucks because he was a college student, and maybe he was a little short on money one month, and was like, you know what? I got 4 of them. Why don't I just go pawn it? Or why don't I sell it to somebody on Facebook Marketplace? Or sell, and then it got sold to somebody. It's that simple, where he might not even know. Yeah, I sold it to Jim Boy, and Jim Boy then sold it to Johnny, and then Johnny gifted it. I mean, who knows? It could be that. When we're talking about the protected area, where it was at, it's not like it was on the top. It's not like it was along the side. It's not like it was in any of those places. It's a protected area that it could have been there quite a long time. So that doesn't mean, and just because, okay, maybe if you had the weapon, then damn straight, the sheath.
Yeah.
But when you're trying to say, well, they were unalived with a sharp object, there's different, I mean, we've shown different sharp objects. Who's to say, that none of that was used? There, and like everybody keeps saying, that is just because the sheath was there doesn't mean that's the weapon. That's why I continue to say, I feel like it could have been a gift. Just when you look at why the sheath was even there in the first place, why would it be there? Because one of the victims had it in their hand, in the other hand, while they had the knife in their hand, because they didn't need to, they weren't thinking about using the other hand to push somebody away, because they were thinking about, shoot, if I don't need this, then I can put it back and be safe.
Right.
That's why the sheath was there. That's why it was by them, because I feel like one of them did have it in one of their hands, because they heard sounds. They didn't know if it was a friend or not, so they didn't know if they needed to use it or not, but they were ready to use it if they had it in their hand. But if they didn't need to, sheath was there, they could have put it easily away. I think the person that committed the crime took the weapon as their own souvenir for a celebration of committing the crime. They're laughing, in their little secluded spot where they're protected. They're laughing, going, I not only got away with this crime, but they get to look at the K-bar that somebody was trying to use to fight against them, and they were successful. So they're looking at that knife as like a piece, like a prize to them, because it's like, you know what, not only I committed this crime, but they can sit there and look at that knife that they took and replay it even better than an article from the crime scene. Because think about it. If they're saying that the sheath, they're not even entertaining the idea that it could have been used for protection from one of the victims. So who's to say that that person is going to get in trouble for being able, they probably have it on a shelf in their living room. That's how they're, they're so, because nobody's, how is any good, when it comes to an ID or it comes to an article of clothing, well, son of a bitch, that'll look odd. That'll tie it right back. But with the knife, not if they're thinking that the person that committed the crime used it and they're about to be on trial. They're not going to associate that knife at all with the crime scene. So that's why I'm saying they could put it up there like they're hanging a fish. Except there's a K-bar up there, and every time they're sitting there at home, they're watching Jeopardy, and then they look up and they can relive the crime every single time they look up during a commercial.
That is horrifying.
It's horrible.
Yeah,
it's horrible.
Absolutely horrifying.
When you focus on one thing, you don't even focus the possibility that other people can be involved either. And you just have that tunnel vision, and that's the other cases we've brought up before on the show, the tunnel vision. You don't think about these things. You really have to think about it. Why in the hell would a sheath have been there in the first place? You think somebody that committed the crime really walked in there and held it in their hand? No, they went in there to use it. So why would they need the sheath for protection of it? They don't. They went in there to use it. Somebody that would need it would be somebody that didn't know if they needed to use it or not. That's why it was it. Just me.
No, that makes perfect sense to me. I mean, yeah, if I were going in there, I wouldn't have, if I were going in there to commit the crime, I would not even have, unless I had it on my belt, I would not even have brought the sheath in. What you gonna need it for? Nothing.
No, because you already know that you're going in there to use it.
Right.
You already know. So why do you need it? No, you're going to put it, if it's not on your belt, you definitely don't want to lose it, do you?
Right.
If it's not on your belt, you definitely don't want to use it. That's why I'm saying somebody that went in there to commit it wouldn't have brought it in there with them. Because why are you going to use one of your hands when you need it? Because you don't know if you're going to make it out of there when you're going against 4 people. You don't know that you're going to be successful all 4 times. What happens if on the 3rd try something happens and then they end up with the knife? You know what I mean? You don't know that. You don't know that. So you're going in there to use it no matter what. So you don't need the sheath.
Right.
You don't need it.
And even if it's on your belt and you leave, okay, you've done your business and you're safe and you're leaving, you would be looking for that sheath to put the knife back in. So why is it, you still have time. You can go back. You're like, shoot, I left it somewhere,
Mm-hmm. Well, and like this too. You heard the noises come from upstairs. The sheath was upstairs. Then you heard the noise come from the 2nd floor. Now, and then when you're going on DM's statement, she says that the person walked by and she saw the bushy eyebrows. There's only one way you can walk by and see eyebrows and open DM's door. And that the only way that's possible is for somebody to walk through that walkway next to the Good Vibe Light sign and DM be able to see through the cracked door. And she said that they walked towards the sliding glass door. She didn't say that they walked back upstairs. So if somebody did commit the crime upstairs, lost the sheath, went downstairs to commit the rest of their crimes, because there was 2 left. Went downstairs to commit the rest of their crimes. Then why didn't DM state that the person went back upstairs? Because if they would have forgot the sheath, they would have even if they didn't know where they lost it. It's only in a couple spots. You just got done on the 2nd floor, so you can search. Okay, shit, I didn't leave it here. I'm going to go back upstairs, right? To search, because that's the only other place it could have been. No, they didn't go search. They left. So to me, that's another thing to me that says, no, that sheath was not part of the crime, because if they would have forgot it, damn straight they would have walked back upstairs to go look.
Yeah.
Because you're not going to leave it behind if you did lose it.
Mm-mm.
No. To me, the sheath was from one of the victims that they were holding when they had the knife in the other hand, because they didn't know if they needed to protect themselves or not. And for them to be so tunnel visioned on the sheath, being that's the murder weapon, even though we don't have the weapon and we have all these different statements from the coroner about the injuries. Okay, well, it's pretty obvious if it was the same weapon, right? Then don't you think the same type of injuries would have taken place? Don't you think if it was only one weapon, they would have been able to come out and say, we know for sure it was a knife that was this long, this many inches, yada, 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 because you hear about it in all these other crime shows.
Yeah.
They tell you how many inches on average with the knife that they're looking for, from this inch to this inch.
Mm-hmm.
You don't get none of that. You get different statements about the injuries. So to me, to sit there and be so tunnel vision that you're looking for or you're interested in a K-bar, what about being interested that was one of the victims that they had for a defense, and the person that committed the crime took the trophy and put it up on their wall like a fish?
Mm-hmm.
That's for somebody to get, with all these people that do these crimes, they usually take an article of the crime so they can relive the crime when they're away from it, right? What better article from the crime would be than like a knife that nobody thinks is tied to anything but the person that committed the crime that they have charged? Like, that's the best part, because it's not a clothing, it's not an earring, it's not a necklace, it's not a phone, it's not nothing. It's something you could literally hang on the damn wall, and nobody could. You could comfortably put that on your wall and know that your ass ain't never gonna get caught. You could bring it with you. You could walk around with it and pull it out and relive the fucking crime while you're on Santa Claus's bus going through the North Pole. You know, like, that's sick.
Yeah.
And they're so focused.
That is horrifying.
It doesn't make sense. The sheath, it just doesn't make sense that the person that committed the crime left it, especially when you look at DM's statements even. That doesn't tell you the person forgot something.